Rev up your engines!
Lucas Ritter says, what do you think about the Jeep 2015 or so? Jeeps are becoming trendy. Should I get an automatic transmission? Well, personally, I would not buy one. Jeeps are made by Chrysler. Chrysler got bought by Fiat. Now, a lot of people are really getting confused. You know, as you say, this is trendy. Well, people watch ads, things become trendy. Doesn't mean it makes any sense. Like those ads they have, Renegade, Jeep Renegade. Jeep Renegade isn't a Jeep. It's a fancy four-wheel drive Fiat 500. It's a four-wheel drive Fiat. It has nothing to do with Jeep. It's just they decided to sell their stuff and call it a Jeep. And the quality of those things, do a little history lesson, research Fiat and the problems they've had, and you'd see, gee, I don't think I'm going to buy a Fiat. I mean, I read recently that Fiat's even contemplating not selling Fiats in the United States. They're not going to get rid of the Chrysler-Fiat merger, but they're going to stop, they might be stopping selling Fiats because they have such low sales that they'll slide them in, like they'll say, well, this is a Chrysler 200. Well, it's got a Fiat engine, a Fiat transmission. Some of them have Alfa Romeo engines in them. It's Italian stuff. It's not Chrysler at all. So, you know, I would not buy a modern day Jeep. If you want a Jeep, get an old one. And it's been fixed up or fix it up yourself. Those old ones that had the straight six. I worked on a Grand Cherokee. It was 86. Still ran like a clock. The AC still blew cold. So, you know, the old ones are fun, but the new ones, I wouldn't buy one. Squizzy says, Scotty, what do you think of the older TDIs? Okay, well, TDIs, you know, you're talking about turbo diesels. If it's a brand that's been making them for a long time, they're very reliable. Diesels are inherently reliable engines if they're made right. They're stronger made because they have more compression. They don't have an ignition system, so they're simpler. But the one thing about diesels is they don't have that much acceleration. They have torque once they get going, but not acceleration. And that's why they turbocharge diesel engine. The first people that were really mass producing that stuff was Mercedes with their 300D. The 300D was a big, heavy car, and it could go and last a long time, but it was really slow with a 5-cylinder diesel engine. As soon as they made them with turbos, they sold a lot more of them because they had a lot more pickup. And if they're well made, they can last a long time. Most diesel trucks these days, the big ones, are turbocharged. They have to be because they're pulling a lot of weight, and that's the only way they can get accelerations, by sticking turbochargers on them. And as long as it's a company that's made them for years, they can be very dependable vehicles. Jackson McNichols, my '03 Ford Ranger shifts into fourth gear at about 2,000 RPMs, when all the other times it shifts at about 37. How can I fix that? Okay, well, your transmission is just basically wearing. It should shift before 3,700 RPMs into the other gears. It's just old age. Now, the problem is it's a Ford and it's old. If you do change the filter and fluid now, it could actually make it worse. So my advice would be take 1 quart of transmission fluid out. Put in 1 quart of Lucas automatic transmission additive, and sometimes that'll make it shift normally through the whole range. But hey, it's still shifting, and if it's running okay, I wouldn't complain too much on something that's that old, because eventually it would have to be rebuilt, and that costs a lot of money. And if it's still working, you might be able to get years out of it if you baby it. But do try taking 1 quart out and putting 1 quart of the Lucas automatic transmission additive in. A lot of times it'll help it after a couple hundred miles of driving. Stones 25, Steve here. How do you find bad electrical wire under the hood? Well, the first thing is use your eyes, be visual. If it's a really old car, you'll see that the wires are copper, and then they're coated with a plastic coating. If the plastic coating, if you bend it and it cracks and rips, you're going to have to replace all that wiring because it's just going bad. Now, if it's a thing that you can't personally see, then you test them. I have a video called How to Find Electrical Shorts in Your Car. Watch that. Basically, what you do is what's called load testing. You get a meter, and then you do ohms resistance testing of the wiring, and you know that, hey, if it's too high, something's wrong. There should be very little resistance in copper wiring. And for that, what you do is test it from end to end. Like you got a sensor, you unplug the sensor, then you check the wiring and go to the other end of the wiring and unplug that, and then test the wire to see if there's a short in it. That's the best way to test it, because you can't really test it when they're plugged in, because then you're also testing what's at each end. You got to check section at a time. That's why on wiring harness they have connectors that you can disconnect. Once you disconnect them, you can easily check that section of the wiring.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.